Have you ever noticed how one person can occupy so much space in our mind without even paying rent? They may not be thinking about us at all, yet our thoughts keep circling around them like a ceiling fan going round and round, doing a lot of work, but not really moving anywhere. We wake up thinking about what they said. We fall asleep wondering why they didn't say something, and in between, our peace quietly slips away. Sometimes it's not even about love. It can be a friend who ignored us, a colleague who didn't appreciate us, a relative who judged us, or someone who simply didn't behave the way we expected. One small incident, one sentence, one reaction, or lack of reaction, and suddenly our mind starts writing a full emotional movie around it. We become the director, the scriptwriter, and the main actor, and unfortunately, it often turns into a tragedy. The strange part is this: the person we are thinking so much about may be completely unaware of the storm they have created inside us. They may be enjoying their tea, scrolling their phone, or sleeping peacefully, while we are mentally exhausted, replaying conversations that already ended. We give them free access to our emotional energy, and in return we receive anxieties, self-doubt, and restlessness. Let me ask you something gently. Why do we give so much importance to people who don't give the same importance to us? Why does someone else's behavior decide our mood for the entire day? Why does one message, one call, or one reaction have the power to disturb our inner balance? The answer lies not in them, but in our attachment to expectations. We often think too much about people because we are emotionally invested in how they see us. We want to be understood, appreciated, valued, and respected. There is nothing wrong with these desires. The problem begins when our self-worth becomes dependent on someone else's response. When that happens, even silence feels like rejection, and indifference feels like disrespect. Many times, overthinking about someone is actually a reflection of our fear. Fear of being ignored, fear of not being enough, fear of losing connection. The mind, in its attempt to protect us, starts analyzing every detail. Why did they say this? What did they mean by that? Did I do something wrong? These questions don't bring clarity, they bring chaos. Think about it. How many times have you created pain in your mind without anything actually happening in reality? How many arguments have you fought silently? How many explanations have you given in your head that were never asked for? This is emotional overthinking, and it drains us slowly but deeply. One of the biggest misunderstandings in life is believing that thinking more will give us control. We think if we analyze enough, worry enough, care enough, the outcome will change. But life doesn't work like that. Thinking too much about someone doesn't change their behavior. It only changes our peace. There is a beautiful saying, don't let someone live rent-free in your mind if they don't deserve a place in your heart. Yet we do exactly the opposite. We give them the best room in our thoughts while neglecting our own mental well-being. Sometimes we confuse attachment with love and obsession with care. Love is light, it gives freedom. Obsession is heavy, it creates dependence. When thinking about someone makes you anxious instead of peaceful, that is not love. That is emotional attachment mixed with insecurity. Life teaches us again and again that not everyone will think about us the way we think about them. Not everyone will value us the way we value them, and that's okay. The world is diverse, minds are different, priorities are different. Expecting emotional equality from everyone is like expecting every flower to have the same fragrance. The moment we realize that our peace is more important than someone's attention, something shifts inside us. We start asking better questions, not why are they like this, but why am I allowing this to affect me so much? That question is the beginning of inner freedom. So as we begin this talk, I invite you to reflect, not on others, but on yourself. How much mental energy are you giving away unnecessarily? How many peaceful moments are you sacrificing for someone who may not even notice? And most importantly, what would your life look like if you redirected that energy back to yourself? Because the truth is simple yet powerful. When you stop thinking too much about people, you start living more for yourself. And that is where peace quietly begins. When we talk about don't think too much about anyone, it may sound simple on the surface, almost casual. Some may even feel, what's wrong with thinking about people? Isn't that called caring? And yes, caring is beautiful. Caring connects hearts. Caring brings warmth to relationships. But there is a very thin line between caring and overthinking, and most of our suffering begins when we unknowingly cross that line. In today's world, our minds are more active than ever, but our hearts are more restless than before. We are constantly connected to people through messages, calls, social media, and memories. Yet, despite this constant connection, we feel emotionally disconnected, insecure, and anxious. A simple scene without a reply can disturb us. A delayed response can make us restless. A change in tone can make us question everything. This is not because people are becoming worse. It is because our dependence on emotional validation is becoming stronger. Overthinking about someone usually does not start suddenly. It grows slowly. First we care, then we expect, then we get attached, and finally we lose peace. What begins as affection turns into mental noise. What begins as concern turns into obsession. Without realizing it, we hand over the remote control of our emotions to someone else. Many people think they overthink because they are weak. That is not true. Most people overthink because they are emotionally sincere. They feel deeply. They value relationships. They invest genuinely. But sincerity without emotional boundaries can become self-destructive. Just because you have a big heart does not mean everyone deserves unrestricted access to it. One of the reasons we think too much about others is because we seek certainty. We want to know where we stand in someone's life. We want clarity. We want assurance. But life and people don't always provide clear answers. Sometimes silence is the answer. Sometimes distance is the answer. And sometimes inconsistency is the answer. The problem is not that answers are unclear. The problem is that we keep questioning even when the answers are already visible through action. We must understand that people think differently, feel differently, and prioritize differently. What is important to you may not be important to someone else. And this difference does not automatically mean disrespect or rejection. It simply means diversity of mind. But when we personalize every difference, we create unnecessary pain. Another reason we overthink is because we confuse attention with value. When someone gives us attention, we feel valued. When they don't, we feel ignored. Slowly, our self-worth becomes linked to how much attention we receive from a particular person. This is dangerous because attention is unstable. It changes with mood, time, and circumstances. When your self-worth depends on something unstable, your peace also becomes unstable. Let us also acknowledge that sometimes we think too much about someone because we have too much empty space in our mind. A mind without purpose easily becomes a playground for unnecessary thoughts. When our life lacks direction, our emotions search for attachment. This is why people who are deeply engaged in meaningful work often overthink less. They are mentally occupied with growth rather than imagination. Another silent cause of overthinking is unspoken expectation. We expect people to behave in a certain way without ever communicating those expectations. Then, when they fail to meet them, we feel hurt. But how can someone fulfill expectations they don't even know exist? Expectations are like silent contracts we sign alone and then blame others for breaking. We also overthink because we fear losing people. The fear of abandonment makes us mentally cling to others. We keep replaying interactions, analyzing words, searching for reassurance. But here is the irony. The more we cling mentally, the heavier we become emotionally, and heaviness pushes people away, not closer. There is also a spiritual aspect to this. Peace does not come from controlling relationships. It comes from accepting reality. When we try to control how others feel about us, we disturb our inner balance. Peace begins when we realize that we are responsible for our intentions and actions, not for other people's reactions. In this talk, we are not promoting emotional coldness or detachment from humanity. We are talking about healthy detachment, the ability to care without losing yourself, to love without overpossessing, and to be involved without becoming emotionally dependent. Detachment is not about distance, it is about balance. You can still love people deeply without letting them dominate your mental space. You can still care sincerely without sacrificing your peace. You can still be kind without becoming emotionally vulnerable to unnecessary hurt. This balance is what emotional maturity looks like. As we move forward in this speech, we will explore why the mind gets stuck on people, how emotional attachment turns into mental exhaustion, and what practical shifts can help you reclaim your peace. Not by pushing people away, but by pulling yourself back to the center of your life. So if you are someone who keeps thinking about what others said, what they meant, why they behaved a certain way, or why they didn't behave the way you expected, please know this: you are not broken. You are simply unaware of your emotional boundaries, and awareness is the first step toward freedom. Let us begin this journey with compassion, not judgment, with understanding, not blame, and with one gentle reminder to ourselves: our peace is precious and it deserves protection. Because when you stop thinking too much about others, you don't become careless. You become careful about yourself, and that is not selfish, that is wise. The real problem does not begin outside us. It begins quietly within us. It begins in the mind, where a simple thought slowly turns into a habit, and that habit quietly becomes a source of suffering. When we talk about the problem of thinking too much about someone, we are not talking about one or two extra thoughts. We are talking about a pattern of mental attachment that slowly steals our peace, focus, and emotional stability. One of the biggest problems is that the mind does not know when to stop. Once it finds an emotional trigger, someone's words, behavior, silence, or inconsistency, it keeps replaying it. The mind believes that by replaying, analyzing, and dissecting every detail, it will find closure. But instead of closure, it creates confusion. Instead of clarity, it creates chaos. The mind starts asking questions that have no clear answers, and those unanswered questions become the source of anxiety. Another serious issue is that overthinking gives imagined situations more power than reality. We start assuming intentions behind people's actions without confirming them. A delayed reply becomes disrespect. A short response becomes anger. A change in behavior becomes rejection. Most of the time, these assumptions have more to do with our insecurities than with the other person's intentions. But once the assumption is made, the mind treats it as truth. This problem becomes even deeper when emotions take over logic. Emotionally, we feel hurt, ignored, or unimportant. Logically, we may know that people are busy, imperfect, or dealing with their own struggles. But when emotions dominate, logic becomes silent. We stop seeing facts and start seeing fears. And fear has a powerful imagination. Another painful part of this problem is that we start neglecting ourselves. When someone occupies too much space in our mind, we unknowingly reduce the space we give to our own growth, health, and happiness. Our productivity suffers, our sleep gets disturbed, our energy drops, yet we continue the same mental behavior, hoping that one day the person or situation will change and magically bring us peace. Overthinking also creates emotional dependency. We start depending on someone's attention, validation, or approval to feel okay about ourselves. Our mood rises and falls based on how they treat us. When they are kind, we feel happy. When they are distant, we feel low. This emotional dependency is dangerous because it gives someone else control over our inner state. Another dimension of the problem is attachment to expectations. We expect people to behave according to our emotional investment. We think, because I care so much, they should care the same way. But life does not work on emotional mathematics. People give according to their capacity, not according to our expectations. When reality doesn't match our expectations, disappointment is inevitable. This problem also affects our self-respect. The more we think about someone who does not reciprocate, the more we question our own worth. We start wondering, am I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? Slowly self-doubt creeps in. Instead of questioning whether the relationship or connection is healthy, we question our own value. Another major issue is that overthinking keeps us stuck in the past. We replay old conversations, moments, and memories, hoping to understand where things went wrong. But the past cannot be edited. No amount of mental replay can change what has already happened. Yet we remain trapped there while life continues to move forward. Social media has also amplified this problem. We constantly see updates, posts, likes, and stories. We compare how someone behaves online versus with us. We analyze who they are talking to, what they are posting, and what they are ignoring. This digital exposure keeps reopening emotional wounds and makes it harder for the mind to rest. The most dangerous part of this problem is that it normalizes suffering. We start believing that it is normal to feel anxious, restless, and emotionally drained because of someone else. We accept this mental pain as part of caring. But caring should bring warmth, not exhaustion. Love should bring strength, not weakness. Overthinking also blocks inner silence. A mind full of people's thoughts has no space for self-reflection. We lose touch with our own needs, desires, and values. We become so focused on understanding others that we forget to understand ourselves. At a deeper level, this problem exists because we seek happiness externally. We look for peace in people instead of within ourselves. But when the source of peace is external, it is always unstable. People change, situations change, priorities change, and when they do, our peace collapses. In essence, the problem is not that we think too much about others. The problem is that we think too little about ourselves. We invest emotional energy outward without first strengthening our inner foundation. Without self-awareness and emotional boundaries, even sincere hearts can suffer deeply. This problem will not be solved by blaming people or running away from relationships. It will be solved by understanding the mind, recognizing unhealthy attachment, and gently shifting our focus back to where it belongs, our own inner balance. Only when we clearly see the problem can we move toward the solution. And that clarity is not meant to make us cold. It is meant to make us conscious. Every problem exists to point us toward a deeper understanding, not to punish us. When we recognize that thinking too much about someone is disturbing our peace, that awareness itself becomes the doorway to the solution. The solution does not lie in forcing the mind to stop thinking, nor in cutting people off harshly. The solution lies in shifting our inner posture, how we relate to our thoughts, emotions, and expectations. The first and most important solution is self-awareness. You cannot change what you are not aware of. Begin by observing your mind without judgment. Notice when your thoughts repeatedly go toward a particular person. Notice what triggers those thoughts: silence, expectations, fear, or insecurity. This observation creates a small gap between you and your thought. And in that gap, freedom begins. The second solution is reducing expectations consciously. Expectations are natural, but unconscious expectations create suffering. Ask yourself honestly, have I expected emotional consistency from someone who has never shown it? Have I expected priority from someone who has different priorities? When expectations are unrealistic, disappointment is guaranteed. Lowering expectations is not lowering your standards, it is aligning expectations with reality. The third solution is building emotional boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They decide how much access someone has to your emotions. You can care without allowing someone to disturb your inner peace. This means learning to say it's okay internally when someone doesn't respond the way you want. It means reminding yourself that other people's behavior is a reflection of their inner world, not your worth. Another powerful solution is redirecting mental energy. The mind cannot be emptied, but it can be engaged. When you stop feeding overthinking, you must feed purpose. Engage yourself in meaningful work, learning, service, creativity, or spiritual practice. A busy mind is not the solution. A purposeful mind is. When your life has direction, people naturally occupy less unnecessary space in your thoughts. The next solution is strengthening self-worth from within. Instead of asking, why don't they value me? Ask, how can I value myself more? Self-worth grows when you keep promises to yourself, respect your own time, and honor your emotional needs. When your sense of worth comes from within, external validation loses its grip. Another important shift is accepting emotional impermanence. People change, feelings change, situations change. This is not cruelty, this is nature. Expecting permanence in emotions is like expecting the weather to remain the same. Acceptance brings peace where resistance brings suffering. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means understanding reality as it is. Practice responding instead of reacting. When someone ignores you or behaves unexpectedly, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is this worth my mental peace? Most of the time it is not. That pause weakens the habit of emotional overthinking and strengthens inner control. A deeply spiritual solution is letting go of control. We often overthink because we want to control how others feel about us. But control creates tension, trust creates peace. Do your best in relationships and release the outcome. Your responsibility ends with your intention and effort. Another solution is limiting mental exposure. Constantly checking messages, social media, or updates related to someone keeps reopening emotional loops. Give your mind space to heal. Distance can be physical, digital, or emotional. Distance is not rejection, it is self-respect. Also, learn the art of self-dialogue. Speak kindly to yourself. When the mind starts overthinking, gently remind it, I am okay. I don't need everyone's approval. My peace matters. The way you talk to yourself shapes your emotional world. Spiritual practices like gratitude, meditation, and reflection also play a powerful role. Gratitude shifts focus from what is missing to what is present. Meditation trains the mind to observe without attachment. Reflection brings wisdom from experience. Most importantly, understand this truth. Peace is not found in people, it is found in perspective. When your perspective changes, the same people and situations lose their power to disturb you. The solution is not instant. It is a gentle, consistent practice of choosing peace over mental noise. self-respect over emotional dependency, and awareness over unconscious attachment. When you apply these solutions, you will notice a beautiful change. You will still care, but you will no longer suffer unnecessarily. You will still love, but you will not lose yourself. You will still connect, but you will remain centered. And that is true emotional strength, not the absence of feelings, but the mastery of them. Now that we understand the problem and its solution, the most important question arises: what will you do with this understanding? Wisdom that is not applied remains only information, and information alone does not change life, action does. This is the moment where reflection must turn into intention, and intention must turn into practice. The first call to action is simple, yet powerful. Choose yourself every day. Every time your mind starts revolving around someone unnecessarily, gently bring it back to yourself. Ask, what do I need right now? Rest, clarity, focus, peace. Start responding to your own needs with the same care you give to others. This single shift begins the journey of self-respect. The second call to action is to set emotional boundaries consciously. Decide today that your peace is non-negotiable. This does not require an announcement or confrontation. Boundaries are often internal decisions. You don't need to stop caring. You need to stop over-investing where there is no balance. Practice caring without expectation. Practice giving without self-loss. The third call to action is to clean your mental space daily. Just as you clean your room, clean your thoughts. At the end of each day, reflect. What thoughts drained me today? Which thoughts were unnecessary? Then gently let them go. A cluttered mind cannot experience peace. Make mental decluttering a daily habit. The fourth call to action is to reduce digital dependency. Limit how often you check messages, statuses, or social media updates related to someone who triggers overthinking. This is not avoidance, it is healing. Give your mind time to settle. Silence is not emptiness, it is space for clarity. The fifth call to action is to invest in self, growth, learn something new, improve a skill. Take care of your body, strengthen your mind. When you grow internally, external validation automatically loses importance. Growth shifts focus from who is thinking about me to who am I becoming. Another important action is to practice conscious gratitude. Every day, list things that are going well in your life: health, opportunities, supportive people, inner strengths. Gratitude reminds the mind that life is bigger than one person or one emotion. Also, practice forgiveness, not necessarily for others, but for yourself. Forgive yourself for overthinking, for attaching too deeply, for expecting too much. Self-criticism keeps you stuck. Self-compassion helps you move forward. Make a decision to pause before reacting. When emotions rise, pause. Breathe, observe. That pause is your power. In that moment, you reclaim control from your emotions. Another call to action is to trust life more. Not everything needs immediate understanding or resolution. Some answers come with time, and some come with acceptance. Trust that what is meant to stay will stay, and what leaves is creating space for something better. Surround yourself with uplifting influences, people, books, talks, and practices that remind you of your worth. The mind absorbs what it is exposed to. Feed it wisdom, not worry. Most importantly, commit to this inner promise: I will not sacrifice my peace for someone else's inconsistency. Repeat it until it becomes belief. This is not a one-day transformation. It is a daily practice. Some days you will succeed. Some days you will slip. That is okay. Progress is not perfection. It is persistence. Today, take one small step. Just one. Maybe it is setting a boundary. Maybe it is choosing silence instead of overthinking. Maybe it is choosing rest instead of mental exhaustion. Small steps taken consistently create powerful change. Let this not remain just a speech you heard or read. Let it become a principle you live by. Because the moment you stop thinking too much about others, you start living more deeply, more freely, and more peacefully. And that choice, the choice of inner peace, is the greatest action you can take for yourself. As we come to the closing of this reflection, let us pause for a moment, not to think about anyone else, but to gently return to ourselves. Throughout this journey, we have spoken about the mind, about attachment, about expectations, and about the quiet ways in which overthinking steals our peace. But the real purpose of this talk is not just understanding, it is remembering who we are beneath all the noise. Life is not asking us to stop loving people. Life is asking us to stop losing ourselves in the process of loving. There is a big difference between caring deeply and hurting deeply. When love is healthy, it expands us. When attachment is unhealthy, it shrinks us. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Many times, we believe that thinking about someone constantly is a sign of loyalty or depth. But true depth is calm, not chaotic. True care is peaceful, not restless. If thinking about someone drains your energy, disturbs your sleep, and weakens your self-respect, that is not love. It is an invitation to grow emotionally. One of the most liberating realizations in life is this: you don't need to be important in everyone's life to be important in your own. Not everyone will understand your heart. Not everyone will value your sincerity. And that is okay. The world is not unfair. It is simply diverse. Remember, people enter our lives for different reasons and for different durations. Some stay, some teach, some leave. Holding on mentally to those who have emotionally moved on only delays your healing. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. Your mind is your home. Be careful who you allow to occupy it. Anyone who takes away your peace without your permission does not deserve permanent residence there. Peace is not something you find later in life. It is something you choose daily. When you stop thinking too much about others, something beautiful happens. You start hearing your own voice again. You begin to understand your needs, your values, your direction. You reconnect with yourself, and that connection is the foundation of all healthy relationships. The greatest relationships are built by emotionally complete individuals, not emotionally dependent ones. When you are whole within yourself, you don't cling, you connect, you don't chase, you attract, you don't beg for attention, you respect yourself. As you walk away from this talk, carry one gentle reminder with you: your peace is precious. Protect it with awareness. Nurture it with self-respect. Guard it with wisdom. If someone stays, appreciate them. If someone leaves, bless them. And through it all, remain rooted in yourself. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with your own mind. When that relationship is peaceful, life becomes lighter, clearer, and more meaningful. May you learn to care without overthinking, love without attachment, and live with inner freedom. That is not just emotional maturity. That is true success in life.